What's going on, ADOM? Welcome to another live cast right here on the ADOM Facebook page. And you are in for a treat today, as you can probably already see. We have with us Jill Nesbitt, who is the Senior Customer Success Manager. Today's live cast is brought to you by Henry Schein One and Dentrix Ascend. And Jill, how are you doing?
Hey, I just want to know, do you like my hat? I thought that today maybe we could have a little fun because since we're all very officially socially distancing, I am very much missing my Halloween costume parties. And so I thought I'd start out by maybe having a little fun, and definitely in honor of my people, the dental office managers who wear a ton of hats. I thought I'd wear a few today. So speaking of hats, I really do want to start out by just acknowledging how busy our office managers are today in this crazy world of us watching numbers and taking care of our patients and taking care of our teams. And since I have the opportunity to work with dental practices across the country, talking to them about software and ideas about how they can run their practice, I'm excited today to hopefully share some ideas on how we can help other office managers maybe lighten the load a little bit. So why don't we get started and let me share some ideas on that. How does that sound?
That sounds great. And so, as you can see, everybody, we had a game plan here for the live cast today, and I'm happy to say that Jill said, "John, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to roll with it. This is going to be fun for everybody watching," and I trust her. So, Jill, let's do it.
Okay. So here is my first hat, which I, of course, am trying to get on my head properly. These are my dad's old loops. I don't even have them upside down. I did. Let's try that again. My hat was upside down. Okay, so here, thinking of our doctors, right, as I put my dad's old loops on, one of the things that we can really do to help lighten the office manager's load, but actually still get things done, is we want to really focus on filling our schedules. So if we're going to try and fill the doctor's schedule, one of the things and best practices that I'm seeing across the country is really all about automating ReCare messaging. So I actually talked about this a few weeks ago when we did another podcast, but I wanted to really highlight it because this is something that an office manager can take their time right now. If you set aside an hour, pretty much everyone in their software, it comes built inside of Dentrix Ascend is all the patient communications messaging. But no matter what software you have, most every practice has some sort of patient communications, ReCare, emails, text messages, etc. You can 100% customize what is the messaging based on last visit date or based on ReCare due date. You can customize the frequency. A lot of our offices, as we well know, we were all closed about 6 months ago. So if you're thinking about, okay, what am I going to do right now to try and fill my schedule? If you're an office manager, you might be able to take time in an hour, customize the messaging and increase the frequency, and that can help and be working for you every day from now on by spending an hour of your time. So that was kind of my first thought as I'm thinking about filling our doctors' schedules and my special hat. How does that sound?
Yeah, I love that. And Jill, you can attest to this. I think no matter how much a practice tries to stay on top of making sure that all of their patients come back for their ReCare, and you've seen it, you've lived it, you're there at the front desk, you're asking them, do you want me to go ahead and reschedule you right now? And what's something that we hear even in today's world, right? People don't always want to lock themselves down to something. So it's like, well, when I get home, I'll go ahead and I'll call you back and let you know I want to reschedule. And we know that that's kind of where, people fall through the cracks. And so I think to your point, like that automation is so important.
Yeah. One other action tip that I would share right now is look for patients who actually don't have a ReCare due date. A lot of the software sends those messages based on when is the patient due. So one of the tricks of the trade that I use is I get a list of all my patients that don't have a ReCare due date at all. Maybe they came in as an emergency or as a comprehensive exam, but they don't have a ReCare due date. We're missing all the messaging to those patients. So that might be something else. All right, you ready for
You have another hat? Yeah. What's your next hat? I'm super curious.
Okay. Now this is a tip that I think most office managers know, but it's never a bad idea to actually be reminded. So this tip is thinking about Christmas and end of year. you might want to make sure that right now you're sending out that insurance remaining letter, right? It's okay. What patients have insurance and benefits remaining, maybe more than a couple $100, and they have an existing treatment plan. Again, in our software, we have something set up that you can do that. You can absolutely do that no matter what software that you have. But thinking of Christmas, now is the time to go ahead and get that sent out. And not just once, right? You well know, you work in marketing. It's not one and done. You want to send that out at least a few different times. And if you haven't yet, block an hour in your calendar, get that sent out, and get that going right now. You heard offices doing that too, John?
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about this is that this is that one form of communication that I've seen over the years, Jill, that people tend to appreciate because they forget, right? Maybe they had on their mind that they want to get a cleaning. Maybe they had in mind they want to get one of their family members in to get something before year end. And unless you're keeping track of what you have left on your insurance, as you know, people they're not always aware of it, let alone them knowing how to even figure out their insurance. I think it's such a great reminder, like you mentioned, to letting them know that the practice is keeping them top of mind.
My other suggestion around that is just like on the first step, okay, make sure that you're getting all your patients who don't have a recare date and get that list and maybe give that to a clinical team member if there is some downtime in the schedule that they can work on. But the other idea that I've seen work really well around, again, just making sure not just that the insurance remaining communication works well, but all of our messaging is making sure that every single patient, we collect an email address and we collect a cell phone. So again, one of the systems that you can set into place in your office, end of month, run a report for all of your new patients that are missing one of those two items. You probably have them. They're probably in their health history that's already scanned in your system. They just didn't get noted all the way into your software. Right. So again, that really optimizes the work that an office manager does by making sure, okay, if you get that list end of month, that's always available sitting on the back counter if the clinical team gets a break. As long as by end of month, they get all of those patient emails and cell phones in, every time we're sending all those messages, now we're not missing anyone.
Yeah.
So that was my idea for this. My other thought is if you're running a multi-location group, man, making sure that you are getting these out and that schedules are hopefully starting to fill themselves thanks to some of that can really be a lifesaver.
Yeah. So I don't know what I'm more excited about, like your next tip or your next hat.
Well, let's do that together. Okay. So my next hat, let's go on vacation, right?
All right.
So my next idea is turn on online booking. So the practices that I work with, of course, in Ascend, online booking is included in the subscription. And we can do that both for recare patients as well as for brand new patients. And so the way that relates to my hat is I like to say that, all right, let's imagine if you're an office manager and you have the ability to turn on online booking, you can sit back and relax and watch your schedule fill itself. Well, okay. Maybe it's not exactly going to fill itself completely, but it certainly is going to help. And in this day and age when office managers, we are just busy. You have 100 things in the office that you need to be doing, but we're still expected to fill the schedule. So by turning on online booking, what you have the ability to do is really leverage your time. And I had a success story I wanted to share too. I have a group practice up in Washington State. They have about 14 or 15 offices. And when they turned on online booking in just 2 of their locations, in 2 days, they had 18 patients scheduled online. I mean, brand spanking new feature, had never been available before. And so that really shows we as patients, it's one thing as an office manager, I don't want to lose control of my schedule. I don't want people to come in when I don't want them. You don't have to lose control of your schedule to turn on online booking and to let that really be a funnel of new patients and recare patients into your schedule. You set it up exactly the way that you want. But then if you think about it, if you're the patient, if you're the busy mom or the busy dad and you're like, it's just on my list of things to do. I schedule my haircut appointments that way. I want to just done. I don't want to have to try and find time to call or negotiate with somebody and listen to things that maybe I don't have time for. My clients right now across the country, this has probably been one of the things I've really seen them take up really quickly over the last 6 months because they can't always have staff in the office. Again, this is another way that the system can really be working for you while you're busy doing other things. John, what are you seeing about online booking with the offices that you're working with?
Yeah, you mentioned it, and I know the one hang up with this, and I think once a practice like that group practice in Washington State you mentioned, once they get over the fact of that they're losing control of their schedule, I think, as you know, then it's a beautiful thing, right? Because this is how so many people schedule a lot of things that they do, and I think one of the biggest things to overcome, which I'm sure you've seen, is that dentistry is becoming, I mean, we call them patients, and there's a lot of elements wanting to control that, but at the end of the day, everybody, acts just like a consumer, right? So if you start to not offer the same type of features that they have to schedule their appointments like they have with other businesses that they frequent, you are going to find yourself in a tough situation. And as much as you want to control it, I think that's why we see a lot of people fall through the cracks, because they really do. They want that opportunity to be able to schedule when they want to schedule. And it's more about the practice finding a way to be able to accommodate that. And what, like you said, like, what a nice thing to wake up or to look at the following week and be able to share with the clinical team that, hey, listen, like, we have all these appointments scheduled and it was all done online. Super cool.
And that's actually one of the things that I work with my offices on, and I hear a lot from the other managers that I work with as well, is that you just have to flip it upside down. So we're used to talking to the patient, getting all their information, and then scheduling the appointment. Well, if you let them schedule the appointment, you're still allowed to call them. You're still allowed to welcome them. Hey, I saw you scheduled online last night. That is awesome. I'd love to welcome you to the practice and tell you what, is there anything we can do for you to make your visit more comfortable? Any chief concern that you've got? Like, you can still have that same warm and welcoming approach. You just do it upside down from what we're used to. And then that way you still feel like you haven't lost kind of that flavor and sense of your practice, but you're still allowing your team to take advantage of the technology that's out there.
Yep. All right, Jill. So it's like 2 p.m. You're an office manager. You already feel like you've worn 3 hats today and the day's not even over. You got to wear another hat. What's next?
Yep. Well, John, it's time to get to work. So this one, my husband's head is a little bit bigger than mine, so hopefully this one doesn't fall off. But I brought my construction hat today because when we're going to get to work, the other part of helping these office managers, my people, is that we have got to increase the efficiency of getting these administrative tasks done. There are tasks that face us every single day that, quite frankly, we're not super excited about, right? We've got to do insurance verification. That needs to get done. But that's hard to set as the priority when you have patients right in front of you. You need to make sure that we are getting all of the paperwork signed. Again, this is work that needs to get done. So when we think about how can we more efficiently take care of our business and make our practices just more efficient, my idea right now is I want to talk about a fully digital patient workflow. So the first step of that is using digital health histories. So if you're an office manager and you're in your office right now, do you still have paper health histories that are sitting on your desk that now, after your patient has filled them out, now you have to scan them, you have to drag them into the patient document center, you may have to tag them, and you might have a stack growing and growing and growing of all the papers in your scan file that you quite haven't gotten to yet, et cetera. One of the things that I'm finding, especially over this last 6 months, is that my customers, especially because, again, patient forms are built into Ascend, they're just fully, what's the word I'm trying to say, embracing a fully digital workflow. So that starts with health history. So one of my first tips would be the first step in creating a fully digital workflow is to digitize your health histories. I don't know. Have you seen that much in the practices that you're working with? I'm seeing it left, right, and center right now.
Yeah. And I think there also are some positive consequences that come out of this that aren't even planned around it. And whether it be maintaining privacy for the patient, right? So like when a lot of those things, when you're able to do a lot of that communication digitally, it just feels like gone should be the days of 2 of the patients standing at the front desk and their information being shared or their treatment plan being shared or what have you. And you never know what they're going to feel comfortable with. There's all the, the HIPAA ideas, the areas that you could fall into. So I think there's so many benefits of not only making it efficient for the practice, like you mentioned on the digital side, but then also just the privacy, I think, and the protection that it helps with the patients. It just feels like, that it streamlines everything for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's step one. So again, in terms of just thinking about things that office managers can do that will make their lives more efficient, take some of that load off the rest of their teams, digitizing your health history is 100% something that you can get done. I think by now, most of us have got digital, x-rays, taking intraocular pictures. I think there's still very few. I'm still seeing some across the country where you have paper charts. If you're still staring at a wall of paper charts, that's obviously another opportunity to take those digital. But for my last hat, I will continue the digital workflow ideas. So
is this the last hat that you're going to wear today?
This is the last hat that we are going to put on for today. So, my little Henry Schein One hat. So, and this is just because these last couple digital workflow ideas, it's really been fun getting to work with the Ascend software because it really has made some of these office managers' lives easier. One of the other pieces that you can digitize in your practice is you can use our automated insurance eligibility system. And if you have that in your practice, in your software, use it. Welcome. Let the software do some work for you. I mean, if there's something that you're probably slipping behind on, it's probably insurance verification. So if you can let your software do some of that work for you, do it. Beyond that, we're also seeing huge uptake for electronic statements. That way, again, not only can you send them in bulk once a month to make sure that we're actually getting paid, you can even in this COVID era, you can send them out one at a time. So even though, John, if you're standing across from me, I can 100% send to your phone an electronic statement. And I know Ascend right now is working on in active development on an online payment option. But even today, I've got customers that have just decided, I'll just put a link to our credit card processing company in the statement message. And then they can pay their statement online. Another fun digital thing that we just released, not even this last week, we have two-way texting. So a ton of practices have really found that two-way texting, just again, we don't have to have time where you and I both have time at the same minute on a phone call. We can be texting back and forth. And so now having that in the system, again, just saves a bunch of time for those office managers. Are you seeing some of those digital approaches happen in your world too?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something that is so key that I just took away from, and that is that it's a daily juggle of wearing all these hats, like you mentioned, of trying to find that perfect time for everybody, the practice and for the patient. And we know that that's never going to be perfect. It's always going to be a juggling act. And the way around that and the way to really be able to continue to serve them, like you mentioned, is the technology. And I think once as these practices, like you mentioned, are embracing that, that's just the way that it is. Schedules are always going to be hectic. They're never going to line up. And so, like you mentioned, you got to meet your patients where they are. I mean, any smart company that sells any product or service, that's what they're doing, right? They acknowledge where their customers are and they meet them there. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. And such good tips. And I got to say, I love the hats.
Good. I'm glad. The one other idea that I was going to share, again, just kind of forward thinking a little bit, is we're coming up, believe it or not, on January 1, right? And from what I've been reading, electronic prescriptions are required in a bunch of new states coming up here as of January 1 for electronic prescriptions of controlled substances. And that's actually one of the things that the Ascend team has really been working on, that we've partnered with DoseSpot to offer that as an integrated option inside the software. But whether you work inside of Ascend and integrated with DoseSpot or you work some other way, I have a note here, I think by January 1, there'll be 25 states that actually are requiring that electronic prescription.
Yep.
So again, that'll be probably another thing on the office manager's list of things to do, right? That you're going to have to subscribe to something, get all your doctors kind of credentialed with that system so that they can send those prescriptions that way. And most likely what I would expect, you're not probably going to print some and then send others electronically. You end up doing all of that through your electronic option. So again, just trying to think of if that's one other option that, again, can be digital, can be even taken care of by the clinical team now because you've got computers hopefully in the back in all the operatories, et cetera. But just another thing that's coming out, another part of our digital workflow that hopefully, again, will make the office manager life a little easier.
Yeah, this is awesome. So I'd love to have you, Jill, share with everybody how they can learn more about Henry Schein One and Dentrix Ascend and a lot of the different things that you talked about. We will note that in the comments section, the ADON team has been putting a whole host of resources that I know you guys have made available, particularly for this live cast on a lot of the things that you spoke about. But what are some ways that people can get in touch and learn more about some of these great features?
Yeah. I always forget the name of the website where you can get the free ebook, so I'll have to go into the show notes for that. But there is a free ebook actually specifically written for office managers. Yep. And so you're welcome. And I know that's at dentrixascend.com/something. So I apologize for not knowing that.
It's dentrixascend.com/ADOM. And it's actually, the link is right in the comments thread. So we're all set.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's exactly where you can go to get more scoop and a free book.
Perfect. Well, Jill, this has been great. Thanks for changing up a little bit. You know, like you and I were talking beforehand, right? I mean, not only is it beneficial, I think, to the audience to hear a lot of these tips, just to kind of stay top of mind, but then to learn about some of the exciting things that Henry Schein One is doing. Of course, somebody from like yourself who is out there working with practices on a daily basis, and like you mentioned, understands it from the shoes of the office manager. So thanks so much. Always a pleasure speaking with you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Jill.